Hey, it's Coach Mark here from Mistertriathlon, where we help you to progress faster in triathlon. And today, I'm going to do that by explaining everything you need to know about easy running, why you need to do it, what it's all about, and how you can apply that in the real world. Okay, so let's jump in. Some of the common questions I hear about running easy is that, won't running slower make me slower? And surely I get faster by running faster. How slow do I actually have to run? So why does running slower actually make you faster? Well, running slower actually creates less fatigue in your body. If you run faster, you're going to create a lot more, and if you run slower, you create less fatigue. Because fatigue in your body, if you have a really hard session, can take 2 or 3 days to subside. So if you do a really hard session and then another hard session, then you're doing the second one on tired muscles, and that's when you can get injured. If you're building up lots of fatigue in your muscles, then subsequent sessions that you do, maybe the next day, you might not be able to hit the targets that you want to be able to hit. And let me explain a little bit more about that. This is a session of 3 times 10-minute run at your threshold with 2 minutes recovery. So the aim of this session is to spend 3 times 10 minutes or 30 minutes at your threshold. So what we want to do is try and spend the maximum time we can at this threshold. But if you're a little bit tired, this kind of thing can happen. And this green line that I put on here is almost a pace that you're running at for the session. So the first interval, yes, you bang on that 10-minute pace. When it gets to the next one, you're starting to feel a little bit tired now because you're fatigued already. You get up to that threshold pace, you're getting a bit tired, you start backing off a little bit, you can't quite hit that intensity. Third one, you can't get anywhere near that threshold because you're just so tired. If the aim of this session is to spend 30 minutes at your threshold, in this session, you're not achieving that because you're spending 10, what's that, maybe 5 minutes there. So you're actually spending about 15 minutes at your threshold rather than desired 30. If you're fatigued, you can't quite achieve the benefits and you're not getting the maximum benefit from that session. And the second thing about easy running is you build up the volume of mitochondria. So the mitochondria are the little dudes that help you provide energy to your muscles. And what happens with slow running is you actually build up the volume that you've got in your body. So you've got a certain amount in your body when you're untrained. And if you then do easy running, you build up the volume of mitochondria that's in your body. If you do fast training, however many mitochondria that you've got, you make them more efficient. So if you do training properly and you start from untrained and then you do easy running, you build up the volume and then when you do hard running, you make all the volume that you've got much more efficient. If you just go from untrained to fast training, you take the few that you've got and you make them a lot more efficient. So the best way to train is to do the easy training to build up the volume, and then do your interval sessions and make all that volume much more efficient. And remember, the more and more efficient ones you've got, then the more that they can deliver energy to your muscles. So what you have to do is you have to mix in easy training to build the volume and high intensities to get them more efficient. So now we understand the benefits of easy running, but how do you actually do it? So how do you determine what's the right level to run at? So I use a system called maftraining, which was developed by Dr. Phil Maffetone. The formula that I'm going to share with you in a minute enables you to estimate your maximum aerobic function. So if you train at this level, this is the top of your aerobic zone. So if you train just below this, you're getting the maximum benefit without all the added stress and strain that you'll get with going into the higher zones. And it's at that point that you can build the volume of mitochondria that we talked about already. So the formula for this is 180 minus your age. Okay, so this is not to be confused with the 220 minus your age that everybody used to use 10-15 years ago to create their heart rate zones. This is a slightly different thing. This is purely not to set all your zones, just to set your maximum aerobic function. What you do is you take your age, 180 minus your age. So say you're 50 years old, the top end of the top heart rate that you would run at for an easy run, a MAF run, would be 130. And you can use that as an approximation. There are little tweaks you can make to this. So if you start training a maximum of 130 and you don't see progression, then you can just reduce it a little bit by 5 to 10 beats, just so that you're even lower, and then you should start to see the progression, because it's only an estimation of your maximum aerobic function. With this, when you start, because that is quite a low heart rate, and especially if you've skipped easy running for a large part of your training, you'll actually find it hard to run at such a low heart rate. So you often see people when they start with this doing a combination of running, the heart rate goes too high, they have to walk, they have to run, they have to walk. And remember, what we're trying to do is we train our bodies at the maximum aerobic function. So to spend the maximum amount of time there you've got to try and be at that zone rather than slightly above it, slightly below it, slightly above it, slightly below it. So one of the best things you can do when you start out with this is to go to quite a steep hill and then walk briskly up that hill. And what that'll do is it'll get your heart rate up to that level, and if you can stay at that heart rate, then you're spending the maximum amount of time you can at your MAF heart rate. And then as you get much fitter and your body gets more efficient at that maximum aerobic function, then you can start to introduce running, and then you'd have to run really slowly, and then eventually over time what happens is you can run faster for the same heart rate. So this kind of training is perfect for longer distance races, because the aim of a longer distance race is to try and keep your heart rate down for a given pace. So remember, your heart rate is a reflection of how hard your body's working. So if you're going at this pace and your heart rate's all the way up here, for this pace your body's having to work really quite hard. So what you want to try and do is become much more efficient at this pace, and then get your heart rate to be more efficient. Sorry, heart rate's a little bit lower at this pace, and then that means that it's not so much strain on your body, and that should pay lots of dividends when you're doing a long distance race. So if you really enjoyed this video, please do subscribe below, and then you'll get notified when other videos come out. So some of the common questions that I hear about easy running. So some of the common questions I hear a lot about for easy running is what running slow. Some of the common questions I hear about slow. So the aim for long distance triathlon is to keep your heart rate at a lower level for that longer distance, and then remember there's no short. What you also need, what you can do with